All right, we're going to call the meeting to order for May 26th with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
No.
Or, I'm sorry, to the agenda?
No.
All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, right hand. Superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm going to ask Byron to come to the podium and just start off talking about he's doing some work with our cybersecurity efforts, and we had a recent audit of Norwell and where we're at with things, and so he's got some recommendations he wants to talk about tonight.
The state of Indiana and the IoT, so the Indiana Office of Technology in Indianapolis sponsors a cyber track program through the universities of Indiana and Purdue. We get free cyber assessments, which is a great time. It's about a 70-page document you get to fill out. And then there's a 4-hour interview based on those questions that they ask you all kinds of stuff that you don't want to be asked. And then they provide you with two documents. One is an executive summary for higher side of high-level stuff, and then the detailed report. And then we had a briefing with Mike and I and the two people who did the cyber assessment last week. And just went over kind of high-level stuff and information. Good stuff. Obviously, we have work to do. So they give you 6 recommendations of things and areas that we need to work on first. Obviously, there's 1,000 things we could do. So the first one is a lot about strengthening our governance and policies. So like formalizing cybersecurity governance, who's in charge of what? Do we have roles labeled to people? Do people know what they're supposed to do whenever something happens? Who's in charge of making decisions if we need to make changes based on stuff coming down? Who's in charge of that? Who's involved in that? How does that all happen? The other one is establishing and maintaining cybersecurity policies. So there's stuff like incident response plans, disaster recovery plans, as our acceptable use policy for staff and students up to date for new stuff, that kind of thing. So on those type of things, there's probably going to need to be a board policy at some point that kind of covers all this, and then the administrative guidelines underneath some of that stuff. So I've got somebody that I've been meeting with that we're going to go through some of this stuff to try to come up with the correct policies. She's been in the field forever. She's worked for some of the big federal government, and then some local state stuff, and works for Ice Miller at this point. And then the next round of stuff, things was more around the security and practices, so the day-to-day stuff, like what are we actually doing? So I have a bunch of spreadsheets and a bunch of information in different places of all the hardware and software we have. Correct? They recommended that we have software that automates that discovery and that we keep it maintained because you can't protect what you don't know you have on your network. So that's a funding thing and a work thing, right? Implementing standard secure configuration. So there's a place called the Center of Internet Security. They provide what they recommend as secure configurations for all types of devices, iPads, Windows devices, switches, access, all this stuff, right? And they recommend that we follow their guidelines on how we configure everything. That is a monumental task of getting that all done with a department of not quite enough. But stuff we can work on, right? It doesn't mean it all has to be done this year. It just means that there's something we can start on and work towards. And then the last one again was formalizing incident response and recovery processes. So they always say, don't say if, but say when something happens, right? Like, do we know what we need to do to make sure that it doesn't become a big deal and we can keep it a small deal? So those are the recommendations we have. None of that happens without resources and recommendations and policies and all that stuff. So kind of just here to loop you guys in on what may be coming and what's going to happen. I mean, even one of the recommendations was changing screen timeouts on laptops and desktops. We know that makes things way more secure. They told me that 25 times over those 2 meetings. I also know that whenever I put temporary recommendations on those last time when I handed out laptops, I put a time frame on them. The first 5 days, I got 25 calls on how can I make this longer. I know it's inconvenient, I know it's a pain, and nobody likes it. I don't like it, nobody likes it, but those are like things that are gonna come. Changes have to happen, and we have to all be able to work together and stand up to make sure that we're as secure as we can within reason, right? Security often fights against convenience, but it is the fact of the world that we live in today, so. That was the fun I had. Those are updates. Hopefully somewhere along the line, there'll be some policies for you guys to sign off on or look over, and then we'll continue to work on some of the other stuff.
I like it. Thank you.
All right, next part, we started a conversation at the last board meeting about some work that our business department is doing to see how we can use AI to streamline and take some time away from some things that were happening within the department. And was it last week or 2 weeks ago? So I had a study council meeting at Southwest Allen, and study council, there's 20-some superintendents there, and Angie Carroll, so I'm gonna ask Angie to come up to the podium if you don't mind, Angie. You thought you were just gonna get to talk from there, didn't you? So Angie, so Angie was a presenter at the study council, didn't know she was gonna be presenting there, didn't really know what the topic was gonna be. And she was just talking about things that were happening in our area with AI and kind of where it's trending and all that kind of stuff. And so I just asked her if she would come, like, in the heart of kind of what we're talking about and talk about some things from her perspective. But I'm just going to do the first couple slides, and then the last slide is for her, and you guys can obviously ask any questions you want. But and I'm really probably dumbing this down for people like me, right? But really looked at the purpose for using AI, especially in our world, really twofold. One's reasoning AI, so that's where it's actually analyzing information, drawing inferences, making decisions, doing that kind of stuff. And Tracy in our last meeting talked about they're having some of those things happening in Parkview in the system that they're using. We are not talking about that here, about it making decisions or running simulations or doing all that. We're not talking about any of that for our purposes right now. The only thing we're looking at is that second purpose that I have there, and that's task-oriented AI. So that's what we're focused on. And this is AI that focuses on performing tasks. It has defined processes that we set up for it, and the whole purpose is to reduce time and cost and human effort on things that are just routine, like accounts payable, stacks of account payable. And we kind of value the time on that. We talked more about that after the board meeting. Shauna actually spends 6+ days out of a month manually putting those things in. And so that's what, and Linda's gonna get up and talk a little bit more about that, but that's what kind of spearheaded her interest. So anyways, just wanted to talk and be clear about those kind of things if anyone's listening in for the board. Like, we're not talking about, at least not at this point, AI that's generating and making decisions and running simulations. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to reduce some of those manual, mundane tasks that we can have our people spend their think time doing something else. So yeah, so we just had this slide, emerging AI opportunities is kind of in the conversation. So then I had a follow-up conversation with Angie, and we just talked about some things, and I asked if she would share some of that with the board. So I'll leave it to you here, Angie.
I know some of you. I know Kathy. I think I know you, Todd. Do you know John Morrison?
Name sounds familiar.
Okay. Who knows John Morrison? I'm from Warren. I've been doing generative AI consulting now since ChatGPT was launched, so I just kind of landed where I am today. And I actually just got wrapped up in doing a lot of advisory work when Lilly announced that $500 million endowment for higher education. So I've been working and advising higher ed in transformation, how to utilize AI in restructuring education curriculum, the way they teach, what they're teaching. But yeah, the highest value right now is those quick wins, where you can utilize AI in your workflows to free up time in those routine, mundane tasks so that you can have more value doing the strategic, creative, human tasks that you actually really like doing. Because what we're finding is that a lot of the people that are doing the work aren't actually spending a lot of their time doing the work they signed up to do. They're finding themselves bogged down with doing all of these things that are administrative or just, you know, really boring and, you know, not their job. So that's what Mike and I have been talking about, is that if you can find ways to utilize AI to replace those things, it really frees up your time. And I attest to that. I have built my own business on a foundation of AI, and it frees me up to be, I wouldn't be here tonight if I didn't have AI doing a lot of the tasks, because I would be at home doing those things. But people think they're behind. You know, AI has been around, generative AI has been around for 3.5 years now. In the mainstream, AI has been around for 70 years now. But we're still in the very beginning. A lot of people feel the pressure right now that, you know, you gotta hurry up and run and do everything. But, you know, higher ed is just now trying to figure things out. It's trickling down into high schools. Even, you know, you look at the elementaries are trying to figure it. Everyone is trying to figure it out right now, but there's real advantages to making moves right now. No one's defining what you guys can and can't do, and there's no one that has a guide that has laid out what's in front of us. We don't know. It's moving very, very fast. And just when we think we've figured it out, someone changes something. So what Mike and I have also talked about is the way we think about approaching AI is more important than actually the tools that we learn to use with AI. So figuring out a playbook for yourself and a mindset in how you use AI. And one of those mindsets is using it for those, you know, repetitive, mundane tasks is more important than actually learning the technology. And the technology is actually not very difficult to learn, or I wouldn't be here teaching people how to use it. But there is a real advantage to getting in and right now defining for other schools and other people that are watching schools getting into it, what they're doing. There's a real advantage to being a leader in this space. And so I don't know if any of you guys do have any. I'm not prepared with a speech. I didn't come prepared, but if any of you have questions, I welcome them. There's very few people that are have learned AI, that are leading in AI, that are using AI tools or teaching AI. There's very few people that are out there leading the charge. So
That's why I don't know if you want to say this more, but when we were talking about, because you were talking about your AI community, and I'm just wondering like who's doing what, and because I told you about kind of what our people were working on, and you made the comment like you talked about like, you know, architects or builders, or you know, it talks about that workflow. And are there a lot of people doing that right now? Like a lot of actual builders that are building workflows and that kind of thing?
So in Fort Wayne, I don't know if you guys probably don't know, but I have a Fort Wayne AI community that I started 2.5 years ago. There are 1,400 people that get together to try to figure it out, but there are very few people that have formalized any way of working. Like we're all, you know, a lot of them are working with companies that are still trying to sort of figure out how they're folding AI into the jobs, because like the thought of how to use it is actually so much harder. And people that have jobs are at a disadvantage because they have to work every day, so they don't have time to figure out AI. But the people that don't have jobs can, you know, so it's just, so no, there are very few people that are, there are a lot of tinkerers, but there aren't a lot of builders right now.
What questions you guys have?
You said higher learning is jumping in what areas are you seeing? I know you said it's not, you know, a lot or a majority of them, but what areas are you seeing them improve their inefficiencies that we could look at, I guess?
So higher ed is in an interesting place right now because they're the closest connection to the workforce. The workforce is transforming rapidly. And so there's a lot of pressure on higher education to transform rapidly to prepare the students for the workforce. But what we've talked about is that that will trickle down into high schools very quickly and then into or elementary even quickly. So, you know, the pressure to be, you know, the students to be prepared for the workforce won't always be at higher education just right now. Lilly, you know, dumping $500 million to the state of Indiana universities really, and they have incentive to do so, but really pushed the charge. The universities would not have been so anxious to move this fast, but they were, and they had to move. They had 4 months to plan, and then they had to write an execution grant, and then they get awarded the grant at the end of this year, and then they have to execute in 3 years. Like it's, so where I'm seeing the most focus is that they are restructuring, they are looking at AI across every domain knowledge, every career path, instead of looking at it as a tech problem. They are looking at how AI folds into every single course and every single curriculum and transforming the way they teach and the way what is taught and the way they teach throughout the universities. And a lot more. I mean, it's very complex to explain. But a lot of people think that AI is a tech, like they give it to the tech department. But in this world of AI and generative AI, it's not strictly a tech problem. It really works into all courses across the board.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
All right, so we can go right into discussion items if you're good. Yeah, that was just kind of the flow, so talking about in the superintendent's report, just kind of want to talk again about just the AI. I don't want to go now to Deb and Linda to just update the board on what they started the discussion last board meeting.
Okay, at the last board meeting, we introduced the concept of using AI to reduce the amount of manual data entry within the accounts payable processes. So we are here to give you an update like we said we would.
For many years, we've tried combining accounts payable with payroll positions. Shauna's doing a great job, but the manual entry of invoices is just takes up so much of her time that it makes it difficult, and we would also like to free her up to do other things. In the spring of 2025, I attended the IASVO conference and went to an AI presentation and also met with an AI vendor. I asked him, so I can just scan in an invoice and it'll automatically populate what we need for our system? And he said, yes. And I was like, well, okay, that's amazing. I mean, so Deb and I began researching different AI programming to organize, store, approve, and import invoices into our AP system. We included analysis between contracts with outside companies and purchasing our own in-house program. We found it beneficial to use the in-house solution. We can use our internal servers. All data remains under our ownership and control. We are able to customize and meet our needs, and it eliminates dependency on cloud licensing and costs.
And I need to emphasize that at this time, there are no standardized in-house AI systems specifically designed for school systems. And I think Angie alluded to that. And this presents a really unique opportunity for us, for our district to be among the first to implement and benefit from this technology. We have received, you can go to the next slide, Mike. We have received a preliminary estimate of $30,300. There would be no additional annual fees ever, no licensing, no updates. But if there was a need for whatever reason to revise or add or edit what we already would gain from that, it would be $150 an hour. We would not need the maintenance cost, the monthly maintenance. We don't feel like that is needed at all. So that's all that we are looking at. Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
The board has established a financial goal of maintaining a fund balance of 15% of expenditures. This objective has been communicated to the superintendent and passed on down to the business. And this is one of the items that we found.
Can contribute to this goal by reducing labor-intensive manual data entry. As Mike said, it takes Shauna about 6 days out of the month. Doesn't include getting approvals. It doesn't include preparing invoices. It's just the entry. We would eliminate 6 fields of entry per invoice by using AI. And it would basically free 6 days for her in the month. The process would also be easier for the approver. Byron and Adam and our ECA treasurers approve invoices. They're printing, signing, and dating, and then uploading the invoice for approval. With AI, they would just click a button and it would show in our history that it was approved and the date it was approved. I spoke with the State Board of Accounts today, actually, and they said that that process would work and we wouldn't be circumventing any procedures by using that. It would also save time in researching invoices. There are oftentimes I have to look up invoices. Sometimes older invoices I have to go and dig through boxes to find. When we have audits, we have to go dig out invoices. So with this system, we can type in the vendor name or any field on the invoice, and it would populate the invoice and any backup that goes with it. So it would definitely save us time with that. And we'll also save time on filing, and we'll save money on paper costs. Shauna and I have been testing the sandbox for the system, and we've had to work through a few kinks, but the developer has helped us through. And today we were actually able to upload all the invoices into the software. We went through and checked everything, which we will do the first few times just to make sure all the invoices uploaded correctly. And then we'll have a check and balance every time we upload, which we do with manual entry also. So.
Interestingly enough, when she talked to the State Board of Accounts today, they hadn't had this question before. We're the first to ask them if we use this system and it shows the dates and the approval and the whole process, is that going to be acceptable during an audit? And they had to think about it. I mean, they just hadn't, we're the first one to ask the question. So we're very excited about this. It's new territory, and we really look at it to save a lot of time. The screen you're looking at now shows over a 5-year period, potential savings of over $200,000 is what we're forecasting.
And just to jump in on that, what they did is just take one of the salaries for accounts payable and what that would be. We've talked about with streamlining our business department. If we're able to do that, now this is a knock on Deb, we're all gonna miss Deb because we love working with Deb, but we wouldn't directly have to replace Deb. It would change other, responsibilities, and there might be recommendations for salary increases or whatever. But this was the easiest way, I think, as you guys were looking at it, to just be at the very minimum, this savings is what it would be at the very minimum. It's probably a little more than that.
And it probably gives you reports too, very quickly,
Mhm.
too, so you can make decisions very quickly.
Right.
So we're prepared to move forward, requesting a formal proposal if pending board approval to explore the initiative further.
So you're talking about a proposal at the June 9th meeting?
Mhm.
You're not asking-
For the
you're not
next-
asking
for the
a
next
vote.
board meeting,
Yeah, you're
yes.
asking for a vote tonight.
I think the important part, which you guys talked about last time and this time, is there's still a checks and balances from a human.
Yes.
And then I'm assuming if you're inputting all of these invoices in, does the system pay the invoice, or do you guys still have to manually say okay to the invoice?
The AI system produces a CSV that we import into the software we have now. So anything with payment wouldn't change. I mean, we'll still
Okay.
manually create
Yes,
the
you're
checks the
Now, the
way,
one,
yeah.
now the one important thing maybe to tell Corey and the rest of the board is that you are still gonna manually input like what account it comes out of, right? And that sort of thing. So it doesn't, so we couldn't just send it, decide, oh, it's gonna go to this account.
Well, and that, like, I think, and I'm sure that it's something you guys have talked about, I'm sure it's something that can be built in, like, if it just decides automatically pay $1 million invoice, and you're like, holy crap, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So those would be built into the system, but I think the most important is you guys, there's checks and balances from you guys
Right.
regardless. So-
We would have to import the CSV file that we check over in
Yeah.
order to pay anything, so.
And that's what I like about, so they were talking about this today, just giving me an update. What I like about those fields that you put in, the account that's gonna be paid out of, like not having that automated, like I think that's really
Yeah.
smart, not to have that automated, because it makes you look at each invoice, and then if you were to see something, like where'd that come from,
Yeah.
right? Which, unless we did it ourselves, it'd be no different than, writing an invoice and handing it to you. Like, it's not really possible, but just in case, like, you can't make up an invoice because they have to look at that and say it's gonna go to this account, well, where that, I don't know this invoice, I've never heard of this yet, so.
But just, they have 7 fields they're doing. So you're putting in
Yeah.
information to 7 fields, it's really.
I'm more
it's gonna
concerned
figure
about the
something.
AI being like, oh, you wrote 100 and I'm gonna write 1 million, that sort of thing.
Right.
But I like the idea, I think it makes sense, and I think, early on, I was not a fan of AI, but the more, it's not going away, and so I think it's important to say, like, yes, you're retiring, but it's not gonna necessarily take a job. Oh, I guess, if you wanna split hairs, it is, but the responsibilities that you were doing aside from this are gonna go to other people, so,
Right, a lot of things they currently do are gonna flow
Yeah.
down to Linda and Courtney. And so we need Shauna to be able
Right.
to absorb
yeah, be
more
more
of
efficient.
Linda's responsibilities.
Yep.
And our chart of accounts, budget lines, everything, every time we pay something, there's a budget line. It's 22 digits long. It all means something, and I think I showed it to you, Todd, the
You
last
did.
time. And so we have hundreds and hundreds of budget lines, so there's no way, that is just something that we have to monitor very closely. And anytime we do anything, we have to have a preparer and a reviewer. Every time, initial and date, initial and date. I mean, every time we do something, so we will not get away from that. That's just part of, securing everything that we do.
And not to prolong, but that's why I want to go back to where we started off with Angie, is just, the different kinds, so reasoning, AI, and then we have task oriented. I'm with you, I'm gonna be honest with you, like AI kind of scares me a little bit, I'm gonna be honest. And so, but we would never in here eliminate the decision-making process within our business department. We're not doing that.
And I guess I failed to catch on the one screen where if a large corporation would get a developer to figure everything out for them, it would cost,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a tremendous amount of money, and I'm sure you could testify too, so
Oh, it's
I
interesting.
just feel like we need to pounce on this,
Yeah.
pounce on it while we can, while it's reasonable.
So I asked Tracy, Tracy let me know that she couldn't be here tonight, so I said, well, do you have any questions, you know, from the documents that you saw? And she just wondered where you guys were at with this, and so we were just texting back and forth, and she said Parkview's that they also had them build a new house one, but it was I don't fully understand because it's epic, because they do things, I think, outside of that, but anyway, and I don't know if she knew the number for sure, but she's saying she's pretty sure it was around $200,000 for what they built. Now Parkview a little bit bigger, maybe than some of the things that we're doing with this right here, but still, it's a pretty hefty price tag.
Any other questions?
I think, I'll just chime in, I think it's a great first step and a good way to get people comfortable with the technology in a contained way that sounds really, really smart. Because after you start to get comfortable with it, using it in this way, then you can see the way, okay, this system might apply over to this workflow as well, and might really ease the burden here, and it can be replicated there, and you start to get a little more comfortable with it there, and it sounds like a really smart place to start.
I mean, when we looked at the coding, or I don't know what they call it, you know, but it's just so complex, it's just mind-boggling. It's just,
All right.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the board? Being a discussion item, are there any members that wish to speak in regards to this item?
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to action items, personnel report.
Okay, so thank you. Leave of absence, Andrea Stevens, food service. Resignations, Lillian Lovell, preschool instructor, Lancaster. Abby Ogle, fourth grade teacher, Ossian. Elizabeth Murta, eighth grade math teacher, the middle school. Head girls golf coach and girls assistant tennis coach. Jesse Randolph, teaching assistant, Ossian. Mackenzie Tolliver, eighth grade girls basketball coach, middle school. Clara Bailey, substitute bus driver, and Lene McAllister, substitute nurse. Carla DeConick, substitute nurse as well. Recommendations. Claire Hipskin, fifth grade teacher at Ossian. Emily Schwartz, first grade teacher at Ossian, and she's right here. Thank you for being here, appreciate it. Kylie Lesh, fifth grade teacher, Lancaster. Michael Scott, physics teacher, high school. Jason McBride, summer school teacher, high school. Eric Thornton, summer ice sponsor. Greg Thornton, head girls golf coach, high school. And Casey Linwell, assistant volunteer, boys soccer coach, high school. Cameron Slusher, substitute bus driver. Position change is Amanda Hamlin Thomas, teaching assistant from the middle school to Ossian. And at this time, I'd like to ask for your approval for these position changes and personnel.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second
Okay, I have a motion and a second in regards to discussion. I have a question in regards to Lillian. Last meeting, we transferred, or there was a position change from preschool instructor to teaching assistant. And now there's a resignation as a
Yeah,
preschool instructor.
Yeah, she found a job as a preschool instructor. I forget exactly where that's at. I
I'm
think-
not for sure where.
So,
Yeah, I don't remember.
so shouldn't that be a teaching assistant
Resignation.
resignation?
Probably
Since
should
we
be.
already transferred her to that.
Yeah, it probably
Sure.
should have been.
Okay.
We're gonna say yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, right hand. Thank you. Overnight or out-of-state trips?
Yeah, so you can let me know if you want me to go with these individually, or if you want to do them as a group. Okay, so I'll just say them out loud. We've got 2 Campus Lives trips that we've done the last few years. And then girls basketball has a showcase in June, 2 of them. Well, I guess one is a showcase, one is a team camp. So just ask for your approval of all those trips.
Motion to approve?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor, right hand. Declare items of no value.
Yeah, so at one of our last presentations, Amy was talking about some buses that, when we were talking about the number that we have in our fleet, that the repairs to the value of the bus just didn't make sense, weren't cost effective to repair. And so there's 5 buses on there that Amy's recommending that we declare a value. That way we can sell them at auction, we can sell them for parts, we could sell them for someone else that wants to fix it and use it for a not-for-profit. LifeWise has done that before as well. But just ask that you approve those buses as no value.
I was really surprised at the value that they
Yeah.
didn't say. So I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any other questions? Any members of the public? All right, hearing none. Those in favor, right hand. Moving on to draft policy number 4307, the wireless devices prohibition policy.
Yeah, so we discussed this at the last board meeting. I'll just leave it to the board if you have any further discussions, or if you're ready to make a motion.
Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion of the board?
You're going to fall for every kid that asks me now. No. Once again, this is not something that is our idea. This is from your state legislature. So,
Any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to this agenda item? All right, have a motion for approval. All those in favor, right hand. All right, moving on to policy number 8710 and administrative guidelines for 8710, relations with community boosters.
Yeah, just going back to our discussion, we just have never had a policy for this. We've got great booster programs and leaders in that, but we felt like we probably need to have guidelines for that. Well, if we have guidelines, we really need to have policy. So I'll leave it to the board. First of all, if you want more discussion, or if you want to do the policy separate from the guidelines, or just approve them all in one motion of approval. It's up to you.
We'll start with the policy, put the policy in place first and then do the administrative guidelines, so.
the policy, there was just, and maybe I'm not reading it properly. If there's a booster organization and the coach works for the school, can they still be in charge of that booster?
No, I mean, right, so let's open that back up.
Because the issue then, like I believe, I'm not gonna speak for basketball, but I'm 99% sure Coach Thornton does it, and I'm not gonna get in his way.
No, right, I mean, I think they can be, obviously be a leader, and that just like when I was, because PTOs are the same, so if when I was a building principal, we had a PTO, and I went to all the meetings, and, everything went through me, like they're not going to, disrupt school or do an event or something without the principal's approval and okay with it. So within the policy, do you have the wording exactly, because we can go to that?
The school corporation employee handles the term that under no circumstances shall the school corporation employee handle booster funds as part of their official
Right.
duties.
Well, so yeah, that's probably it.
So that's different than, like, you're helping to lead how it's gonna be done.
Well, like I know when I go to basketball on Saturdays, he's writing the checks to the refs. And I have no idea if he's the president, I just know he's the one doing that.
And without a policy, we wouldn't really have any guidelines to control that. I would say that's probably bad practice. Obviously, Coach Thornton, we trust the world out of him. He runs a top-notch program. He's ethical and all that. It's probably not great practice. And so I think, but to this point, there wasn't board policy against this. It wasn't like anybody's breaking policy.
So then I guess my thought, because I don't want to approve it, because without knowing, not just basketball, I'm just using him as an example. I don't want to approve it without knowing the booster clubs that would be, or the violations, I guess.
Yeah, so I think there's probably on this policy, there's going to be some changes. But if you were to, in just how we do it, it's just a matter of who's writing checks and making sure it's not running through our books at all. So we talked with the State Board of Accounts just to make sure I say every, and they said absolutely not, you really shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't think, it's not going through Norwell's accounts. I mean, Deb would know better than I don't know for sure, but I think.
Right,
We
but
would-
even State Board of Accounts would say not to be writing,
I know.
not to write the checks.
Which is fine, but I've been part of when I was the coach of the team, if I had someone else writing the checks, I would not have been the coach of the team not because I needed control, but because I needed to send a check for this, team camp, and Jim, who is the board president or secretary, can't get the check out in time.
Yeah,
So I think,
yeah. No, I understand. No,
I don't want to
understand.
vote yes for it at this point without that.
And here's what I would say.
If you guys do, that's fine.
Yeah, no, and the only thing, I appreciate what you're saying. The only caveat I would put with that is, like, these policies, like, we didn't necessarily write these
Yeah.
directly. Like, that's how State Board of Accounts says you have to do it. So even if we were doing it a little bit different way, and we might prefer to do it a little different way, we shouldn't be doing it a different way. So it may mean that we have to do some things differently. We first wanted to take this kind of three-board policy, then you've got our guidelines. The next step would be Kelly organizing, the athletic boosters, anybody else organize the boosters, so let's go over the policy, talk about practices and what things probably need to be changed. That would be the process, but it has to start with the board actually approving a policy for us to go to the next step, breaking it down.
I don't agree with that, so.
Well, and because essentially the way that this reads is that we have to approve them, which means there would need to be a list of all of them that would come to us.
I think
we need to be approved to be able to continue to move forward.
I agree that it's not it's not clean, how we currently have it. But I think we have it in reverse order, in my opinion. I think we need to go to and if Coach Thornton says, absolutely, I don't really care, or Coach Gerber or tennis team, fine, but I don't want to pass this and then have them be like, oh, well, I put in way too much work, and then have some of these booster clubs fold.
So, and again, I appreciate it, because, yeah, we do want things to be, collaborative where we can. I guess, though, so you talk about, we talk about a lot of kind of decision-making, and when you do shared decision-making and when you don't. You don't when there's really kind of not a choice, right? So that's one thing I would say. So if we go to, and again, nobody respects Coach Thornton and what he does, I think, more than I do. But if I go to Coach Thornton and say, well, what do you want to do here? And he chooses something that's different than what the State Board of Accounts says we have to do, what good does that opinion
So why does the
matter?
State Board of Accounts have anything to do with booster clubs?
Because that whole delineation, like, you have to be careful that there's a separation between the school function and the booster function. Because, I'm not here, but unfortunately, I think there has been various things that have happened between, right? And so the way that you kind of assure, just like we have internal controls within our business department, the way you ensure that doesn't happen is you keep a clean line between booster people and school people.
Yeah, I just think we're gonna lose booster organizations if that is the line we take, which I don't think the Board of Accounts understands. Like, did they just come out with this, or?
No, this is.
Right, so part of me says we don't need, if you guys want to approve it, that's fine, I'm gonna vote no on it at this point, just because I don't think that there's enough information to move forward, making it comfortable. If you guys go, or if Kelby goes and he's like, no, we don't have any coaches that are fighting this, they'll absolutely put someone new in there, fine, that's good, but I don't want, I think it's, I don't know. I absolutely agree that there's nefarious things that go on. I just think there's probably some different stopgaps we could put in, or grandfather some of these ones in and say any new organizations the coaches or employees cannot be on moving forward. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know what you guys think.
And I'll wait for you, if there's any other board members.
I think it needs to be clean, and I think if that's what it requires, then I think that that's what we need to do. Like, you see things that I don't see as far as that goes. I had no idea that there were.
And like I said, he may not be. I just know he's the one that writes the
Sure.
checks to the refs that are there every Saturday. So that's, I'm just using it as an example, but yeah. And I agree with the clean, black and white. I just don't know how we institute it without some frustrations.
Well, I think a lot of things that we have to institute, we institute with frustrations. Unfortunately, what I think is probably gonna be more frustrating is when we end up in the newspaper, which.
Yeah, for something nefarious, yeah.
You know, and I read newspapers every day, multiple, and I see it.
Yeah.
And it's not far from here, of others.
Yeah.
That have
Yeah.
run into this issue while, you know, we'd like to think that we trust everybody with 100%. Unfortunately, the best people sometimes are the ones that you never expect. And, you know, I think it's, at the end of the day, we're not only protecting us as a district, but we're, by saying they can't do it, we're also protecting them.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, it, like I said, for me, I'm not gonna vote yes on it tonight, because I think I would like the rest of the information first, especially since this was not just sent out, like, not from you, but it's not coming down from Indianapolis. But if you guys want to move forward with it, you guys can make a motion.
And just curious, quick on that, so just, what would be that information that would be more helpful to you?
How many of our
was
booster
this-
clubs are in violation of this policy currently? And if they are in violation of it, do they have people willing and able to take it over?
How would you feel about, it to be you and maybe another board member, if we got people together and talked about this policy, like in like a little work session or whatever, and just had that conversation with everybody, and then brought it back in June for a vote?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
I mean,
Like,
would
just
that,
pushing it.
I mean, would that be helpful to be between now and then? Because I can appreciate that, and we talked about which way we wanted to go with this. Do we have a conversation first? We thought, okay, well, let's create a policy first, and, because really, policy got to dictate, you know, really actions below it, but I'd be okay if you wanted to kind of do that process where we have everyone together in a board or two representative and talk about it.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, I could be saying all of this and nobody's violating this, and I just wasted
Right.
everyone's time, so.
No,
like,
I-
but yeah, so I like that idea, because I don't find ourselves having to do this ASAP, so I would just like the information first. But,
So, given
so
that-
push it, or table it, I guess, would be my motion. Do you want me, yeah, I'll make a motion to table it to.
Would you like to be there for that?
Yeah, if it works out, but
Yeah.
if somebody else, I mean, I'll be, if I am there, I'll definitely give a report on how it went, for sure.
Have a motion?
I will second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor, or I guess any other discussion first? Any discussion from members of the public? All right, a motion to table. All those in favor, right hand. All right. And then move on to the 26-27 SRO contract.
And so every kind of May, we get together with our sheriff's department and go over the current agreement, if there's any changes. And so they weren't recommending changes, so this is exactly the same agreement that we had last year that the board approved. And just take a moment to say that Deputy Gers has just been crushing it. I mean, he's just doing a fantastic job. We're looking at some other partnerships to where we could even increase our footprint a little bit with law enforcement on our campus. So we're meeting here later this summer to kind of go over that a little bit more. But anyway, I would recommend approving it. It's going great, and like I said, could be happier than we are with Deputy Gers.
You were in the meeting and everything? Yeah, I've heard great things,
Yeah.
so.
second, any discussion? The only thing I would say is, it'd be nice maybe to have him come in for a board meeting as he's, documenting activities. It would be good to
Oh,
have a
yeah, that'd be good.
presentation.
Yeah, we had talked about doing that, so we talked about this summer having him come and give you an overview of everything, and, because there's another, like I said, there's another step that we may be doing, or another thing to talk to the board about, so that could be part of that whole discussion. Yeah.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to this agenda item? Hearing none, all in favor, right hand? All right, SEBT trustee recommendation.
All right. I mean, you can, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, you're giving up your post, go ahead and make the recommendation.
Okay, and just recommending Mike Springer to become the trustee at the SEBT. I've been the trustee for the last 12 years, so it has to be an administrator, so I think that Mr. Springer would be the best representative to offer.
And then we'll have Courtney come to the meetings with me, so as a HR kind of voice and making sure she's on the, in the know, because she wouldn't vote, I would be the only voting.
Can we break down what SEBT is?
Oh, the SEBT is our insurance trust. It provides the benefits for the employees. The School Employee Benefit Trust is what it's called. And there's about 11 different schools that belong to it. So we're self-insured.
So is that something that you want to put on your plate?
I mean, it's pretty typical. I didn't do it when I came in because Deb had already been doing it, but most superintendents are there doing it in the area. Not all of them, but most are. And it's not a huge commitment. I mean, and I'm there anyway. I've been going anyway to the meetings, so, no, I should be there.
Okay, so you want to put that on your plate then?
Yeah, it's not, I mean, I'm not writing insurance plans or doing diagnostics or anything, so.
There's about 4 to 5 meetings every year to meet as the board meets about 4 to 5 times a year.
Have a request?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor, right hand. All right, moving on to limited public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to come up and address the school board related to school matters? All right, hearing none, upcoming calendar of events. Last day of school will be Thursday. I think last days for the teachers will be on Friday. June 7th is our graduation. June 9th, ISBA June School Law Seminar. Just really quickly, I'm planning to attend. Is anybody else? I know Kathy can't. It's a Tuesday, I believe.
It's a next board meeting, so you're gonna be last minute to get back.
Well, that's pretty typical. They're always right before board meetings.
I'm supposed to be out.
Okay. June 10th, referendum roadmap workshop. Hopefully we do not have to worry about that anytime soon. June 18th, ISBA School Budget and Finance Seminar, and then the ISBA School Board Candidate Resources and Webinars. I don't know what that date is. I don't know. It's not on there. Any other business from the board?
No, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.